So welcome to GTC Insiders. I'm delighted to say we're joined today by David Fernandez. GTC Insiders is where we bring you the expert views from around the market. I'm delighted to say David is really one of those experts. So we have a great session planned for you today. So without further ado, perhaps David, you could introduce yourself.
I'm happy to be here with all of you, particularly with the GTC folks and followers. So my name is David Fernandez. I've been working in the telecom industry most of my life, and particularly in my last 8 years, I would say, I've been spending working for big companies like Meta and Google, where I was in charge of different verticals for telecom and technology, but with a special focus on the messaging solutions. So I'm kind of like a little bit of expert in WhatsApp and particularly on RCS, where I was doing the global go-to-market strategy. And on top of that, I've been working on and on top of that, I was working on the AI space. And I have a small startup called DChat, which is basically focusing to create AI experiences within the messaging space, which is basically like very, very complementary to messaging and to the world of messaging as we speak now, right?
Cool. And clearly these are hot topics right now. Probably the hottest of which is RCS. So perhaps, David, you could talk us through a bit of your experience in this domain.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's like this is a very interesting story because, I didn't mention, but I mentioned that I was in the telecom space. So when I was working in Huawei, there was a project that in Huawei, I was managing their innovation centers for telecoms, and there was a project competing with Ericsson that was something called Join. And we basically was a core of what RCS was. So we and my team was working on that particularly. We lost in the competitive space because at the end of the day, it was launched with Ericsson. But that was the root of what formerly was called RCS later on in time. So that's my origin on this. And obviously, because I've been exposed in the messaging industry for a long time, and not only WhatsApp, but also previously SMS and others, I got into Google. They need somebody to think on how we could work with brands and work within the ecosystem to educate them, and as well to find new ways to bring to market RCS. So that's what I was doing. I was working on, how to work with brands to bring them from their traditional SMS messaging strategies into basic RCS strategies, and then moving them from pure basic strategies to very conversational strategies at that front, right? So that's one of the things that I was doing. On top of that, I always have a product mindset. So I was been thinking about products. So I was collaborating with my product and engineering teams and new innovations around integrating RCS with Google Wallet, or things that are going to happen in the future, like P2A, or the integrations with Gemini and creating generative AI, which is what I'm doing right now in my startup, where other big projects that I was doing in that ecosystem.
So that's really exciting, and clearly you are an expert in this space, working for some of the biggest companies that are shaping kind of RCS as we know it. Perhaps referring to your kind of product roadmap piece, talk us through what you see as the evolution of RCS.
I think that clearly, and probably that the most important thing is like RCS used to be a Google only thing plus the carriers in collaboration, but now it's not Google anymore, it's Apple, right? So I think that right now what we're gonna see is like every single device on Earth will come preloaded by RCS, which is very important, right? Because we're talking about billions of devices and not only hundreds of millions of devices as it used to be before. So that opens up an opportunity for every single market, and probably we'll talk about markets later on, to have an ability to, one, enable peer-to-peer communications in a much more richer, secure, and collaborative way. But at the same time, helping businesses as well to leverage the capabilities of the channel. And I think that the three big elements of the innovation, which now with Apple are complete, I would say, are that is a secure and verified channel, You basically, when you receive a message, I mean, you see the logo of the brand and you see the verification. Obviously, it's branded, so the brand can make a much more value of the campaigns than just getting a phone number. And because you see the logo, you see the colorful aspect of the image and the campaigns. And the third one, which is very rich, right? Because you are talking about rich cars, you are talking about sending images, high quality video, you are talking about carousels, suggested actions, suggested replies, native integrations with Google Wallet, for example, where at the end of the day are going to give businesses more capabilities to create a much more conversational scenario, right? If you think on top of that, there are many more things that can happen, but I think that in the long run, you combine this with generative AI, then you can see the full potential, right? So I'm not talking about only generative AI from the lens of pure textual communications between the consumer and the business, but as well letting AI decide what type of richness you're going to be doing, right? So that is where I see the market is going and the product is going. And you think about that, the potential is very big because we're talking like a mini app within every single device. No, it's not like you have to download an app. You can do, I will not say everything, but you can do many interesting things that you can do in an app today within just the messaging channel.
Amazing. And I think it's almost like you've seen some of these questions, David. You've started to touch upon the enablers, such as Apple joining the party, the kind of application that is delivered via RCS, but perhaps you could talk more about some of the barriers in this space, because clearly this has been talked about for some time, but we're now really seeing some momentum. Yeah. So talk to us about the barriers. And
that's a very, I wouldn't say tricky question, but complex question, because I mean, as a barrier, I think that more than a barrier, I can see this as a friction. The biggest friction that this solution has is like, this is an ecosystem solution. So as an ecosystem solution, it's been supported by Google with the backends and then supported by Google and Apple with the devices, but it has to be supported as well by the carriers and by the aggregators. So obviously there are many different players and many different actors in globally, but as well in every single market. So the first thing that needs to happen is to reduce the fragmentation. So it's to ensure that, commercial models are aligned, that every brand gets the same approach when it comes to launching their campaigns across different carriers, and they don't get into different technology integrations or different business model approaches or different campaign approaches, because that can generate a clear barrier because it adds a lot of friction, right? So that's probably the biggest challenge, but as well the biggest opportunity that I can see, because if the ecosystem aligns very well each other, then the acceleration to the market happens very quickly. The second element that I can definitely see is like the consumer and the brand awareness of the value of the potential of the channel. So far right now, when a brand launches an RCS campaign, they can clearly see the value. We've seen in clear case studies like 4 to 10 times more engagement on RCS compared to SMS, and 2 to 4 to even more times conversions compared to SMS, for example, or compared to other traditional communication channels, for example, like email. Now that is super, super saturated. So that happens when the brand sees it, but the reality is like that yet in the market, not many brands that they see the full potential. So I can definitely see that once the brands will see the full potential, the market will accelerate as far as fragmentation and friction is eliminated too.
Perfect. So it's the perfect segue to talking about the impact on consumers, to kind of probably trying to reference some of the use cases in the future and the way that you see RCS being used by businesses to connect to their customers. So
your point is more asking about the consumer experience, right? In this case.
Yeah, consumer experience, but what are the future use cases you think could be brought through?
There are a lot, because as far as you think on a mini app and I think on a secure and verified and richer experience, you can start thinking on what I call the customer journey approach, which is basically is like you think about the typical marketing funnel or the typical journeys on every single vertical. you can apply messaging on every single aspect of it. So from the moment that you want to drive discovery, so it's like making people aware that you have a new product, for example, or there's something new to offer to them, to the moment that they purchase, to the moment that they become a real customer, so you can onboard them, and to the moment that they have a problem, right? So you can cover all the different stages of that journey. And then when it comes, the relevance that because the channel is verified and branded, the users are going to interact more actively with it. And because they interact more actively with it, you can get more of it. Because one, you have analytics, and two, you have that richness that enables you to create that type of experiences. So at the end of the day, what you're having is like what we call the messaging transformation channel, where you're going to drive some kind of your digital transformation around messaging too in that front, right? So let me give you some examples. For example, there is a case study from a well-known company called Other Media, where Netflix was making people aware of the latest movies and episodes. So, the way that you see Netflix, when you open Netflix and you see the top 10 movies, but they were sending campaigns about the top 10 movies to increase user engagement and usage of the app. And at one moment in time, when you see this, it was very colorful, carousel-based. You could potentially see mini shorts of every episode that you were having there. And then when you click, you open up the app, and that is extremely interactive. And that drives awareness and discovery, for example, of Netflix products, particularly in this case for existing customers or potential subscribers. There are cases where, for example, Vietnam Airlines, which is a very interesting one, allows you to do online check-in on the channel. And the outcome is, at least on Android devices, yet this is not integrated in iOS, you can get your boarding pass directly and integrated with Google Wallet through the RCS channel. This is another example. We've seen companies like Overstock.com, for example, where when you buy a product, they send you, it's like a message asking you about the experience with the product, and then you can rate the product. And because the channel has analytics, those analytics are if the message has been delivered, if the user has seen the message, but also how and when the user interact with the message, if they click a particular button. So Overstock.com was able just to rate from 1 to 5 stars, and they were getting the ratings in real time from the users that were purchasing particular products. Yeah, and these are just 3 examples. So we have banks and financial institutions, we have retailers that they are doing a lot of different work selling, promoting products and services. I mean, it's like companies like Simple Human, for example, they are launching now a new their campaigns in the US and with really, really, really great results. And so the most interesting thing is like it's super graphical and super visual. So you have a lot of great assets as a marketeer, as a customer experience professional on your hands to deliver great experience for the end consumer.
So it feels like everything's coming together in the market. You've got the kind of new use cases, the customer experience in being enhanced. A lot of our customers are obviously focused on this area as a future area for growth. What's going to accelerate the adoption, do you think?
Well, I think, probably going back to my point that I did before, right? It's like one is ensuring that, brands and consumers are aware that there is a new channel that they can use safely and more effectively than probably other channels right now. The second thing is to ensure that you are in a market where you have no clear yet defined commercial models or go-to-market strategy in, I would say, partnership with other carriers and other aggregators that sit together and try to find out a way where you can definitely collaborate and bring those things to market in a way that is very effective, at the same time. So, I mean, obviously there are regulations and many things that needs to happen in those particular markets, but that doesn't mean that if you define a conversational price model, it has to be $1 for everybody, but the model has to be the same, not the price. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So almost connecting the dots between everyone in the value chain.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important just to connect the dots across the value chain. So we here have, obviously Google and Apple on one side providing the technology, but then every single carrier, because they are the ones that are commercializing the technology in the markets and putting the go-to-market approach to it. the aggregators that they already have the access to the customers. Some of them are more advanced, but then you have all the rest of the ecosystem like ISVs, developers, marketing agencies, which at the end of the day, they want to create a lot of value to their customers. And in a case of a marketing agency, obviously, they are thinking about digital campaigns in Facebook, Instagram, or others, but they should be thinking about how they can run digital campaigns on RCS, for example.
Perfect. And that's a really nice way to kind of, I suppose, finish the bit about RCS, but bringing it back to you, you've seen the evolution of this and you've been a big part of it. What are you most excited about?
So I'm more excited about that. The time is now. I mean, it's like, it's been a long time where everybody has been talking about this and everybody has been talking, well, I mean, only when Apple will come here, everything will happen. And now Apple is here, right? So, and we have big markets like, the US, in Europe, we have Spain, UK, France, Germany, for example, just to name some few. We have Brazil, Mexico, India, and eventually other markets that are coming. So it's a great moment to start thinking about that this is the right time. I mean, it's like not all the markets are yet active. And that's a question that you guys or everybody has to ask to Google exactly what is the plan about that. But what is important is like, the channel is becoming very active. The channel is starting to deliver results. And I guess that consumers and brands are starting to become aware, at least in those markets. And that's something that obviously is gonna accelerate.
Perfect. And for me, that's the key point. The time is now. Some of your use cases that you've identified and kind of talked about really delivering value to the customers. So we always talk about kind of a personal question as well. So just to prepare yourself for that is coming, David. And obviously we've got something to talk to all of our customers about that we'll touch upon at the end of the call. So I know I can see the sun coming up over the Bay Area, and with summer approaching, I know you're a big foodie. What's the kind of the best dish that you normally serve up to your friends
I guess
and family?
that probably is a paella. I mean, and I throw parties to up to 60 people, and I cook paella for 60 people. It's a huge paella pan. Basically, a couple of dogs can fill in, and they can eat the leftovers there. I'm telling you this because that happened one day with one friend that came with one dog, but the dog came into the paella when it was already finished, luckily, not before. So, and the interesting aspect of this is because I'm doing AI on my startup, now I'm throwing something that is called paella with the AI and doing some paellas to some people here in the startup community. And we spend some really good time together, socializing and talking about the future of conversational AI and messaging, obviously, because conversational AI and messaging are intimately close together.
Well, we'll have to have a paella competition because Jose, obviously one of our founders, is a big paella fan and creator. So we'll have to sample both.
It would be awesome that we can do that, definitely. I mean, I think that it's going to be fun for Jose and me, but it's going to be even better for you guys that are going to be tasting it.
Exactly. And hopefully no dogs towards the end, but why not? So I talked about something and a bit of a surprise for our customers. We are going to be working with you, David, in terms of a training session around RCS. So something to watch out for. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about that, just in summary of what value that could create. And then will close out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, the first thing is like RCS is here, obviously, but the devil is on the details. And this is not SMS anymore, where you have 160 characters and, you have either a couple of protocols, HTTP REST, SMPP, or eventually signaling number 7. Here, the technology is different. The implementations across devices yet is slightly different. The abilities of the channel are great, but sometimes you need to know how to use it in order just to leverage all those type of things. Obviously, they need to be clarified, and this is a very interesting place to think about. But again, as well, I mean, it's like you have to look at this from the lens, like if I'm a carrier, what I should be looking at, if I'm an aggregator, what I should be looking at, or if I'm an enterprise, what I should be looking at, right?
Fantastic. So that's a perfect way to end, I think, in terms of something for our customers to look out for. But on behalf of GTC, David, I'd just like to say thank you for what was a great interview with some brilliant highlights around
You're more
RCS.
than welcome. I'm happy to be here with you guys.